Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Joel Beya, and I am back with David Ornstein for the Five Insider. David, there's been a lot going on since we spoke last Thursday, man. How have you been coping?
Well, we got my normal location back, so that's a start. I feel more comfortable. I was in a hotel room last week, and in terms of the work, it's been crazy. I thought this was going to be a bit of a down period before the World Cup, bit of a break, chance to recharge the batteries, and it's gone in the opposite direction. Loads is happening at club and international level, so it's a good chance for us to catch up and go through some of the stories.
It really is. And I want to start off with the England squad. I mean, it's been the news. I wouldn't say there's that much surprise in some of the selections that have been made. Obviously, there's been opinions of what we think who should have went and who shouldn't go. But I think we pretty much knew what was going on. Big news for the likes of James Maddison, of course, being included. That's massive. Are there any players that have expressed to you or people that you know some sort of behavior, being happy, being sad? Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, well, I think naturally, and even Gareth Southgate pointed to this, those that he had the pleasure to inform they were included were elated. And I think James Maddison would be chief among them because he has not been backwards in coming forwards about his desire to represent his country and to be involved in this World Cup squad. He never stopped believing. Do you remember the defeat at Tottenham when Leicester looked like they could be set for a managerial change? They were rooted to the bottom of the Premier League, but he fronted up after the match and spoke really well. And even at that point, I think he was talking up his chances. He's a passionate England fan, as we've seen from his social post after making it into the squad. And I think he would have been doing cartwheels around that Leicester training ground when he found out and went back out to join his teammates for their session. And Conor Gallagher, no doubt, he'd be absolutely made up. You do sense a bit of surprise across the industry, maybe even from a few people I've spoken to at Chelsea. They're obviously delighted for him, but I'm not sure they thought he would be in, especially as somebody like Ruben Loftus-Cheek has actually been more heavily involved for Chelsea this season than Conor Gallagher has. And he has been, a fairly regular participant for England when he's been fit. He was at the 2018 World Cup, I believe. And I think Loftus-Cheek will be very disappointed. I think somebody like Mark Guéhi will be disappointed because he broke into the England setup in March of this year, earned his debut, did well. I don't think's really put a foot wrong for Crystal Palace, was in the most recent squad, and he misses out. The likes of Fikayo Tomori, although we got the sense that he wouldn't be in, he hasn't had the best time of it more recently at AC Milan. But I think there'll be some question marks among those players, and especially Guéhi and Loftus-Cheek. They spring to mind immediately. So the contrasting emotions are normal in these situations. A sentiment I've got from a few players, not only England, but around other global nations, is that if there's one to be left out of, maybe it's this one. The Winter World Cup, huge controversy, not at a normal time of the year. Loads of teams are suffering from injuries, differing views on the tournament taking place in Qatar. And especially for the younger players, they'll focus on their club football and try and make it into the next major tournament squad. So, yeah, it's a period of contrasting emotions, that's for sure.
I want to add one more player that I think the whole world hasn't really discussed, and he might feel hard done by. Jarrod Bowen, attacking up top. I'm not saying he's been great. I'm not saying he deserved to be in the squad, but, he was in there for a shout for a minute, right?
Yeah, Jarrod Bowen, I think, will be very disappointed because not too dissimilar to Guéhi, they both broke into the setup. They both did pretty well for England. And I'm sure they probably felt, whether it was indicated by Gareth Southgate or not, that they stood a really good chance of making it to this tournament. Your young players who, in the case of Guéhi in particular, had come through the system of the FA. And the point being, when you come through that system, is that you'll graduate towards the first team. And when you're there, unless you do something majorly wrong, for the continuity, for the sense of togetherness, you'll stay a part of it. And Jarrod Bowen didn't have the best start to the season, but actually his form has picked up. I think, yeah, he'll be pretty downbeat about this. And when you see players who have maybe come out of the blue in terms of James Maddison, who most of us agreed deserved his opportunity, but he hasn't been in the frame for a few years, and he only had one cap before, and it seemed that he wasn't part of Gareth Southgate's thinking. And then suddenly, not that his performances have been much different, his level has always been pretty high from what I can see. And the feeling across the industry was that Gareth Southgate sticks to those he knows and he trusts, and he's built this sort of camaraderie, and everybody knows the systems and the ways of playing and the conduct on and off the pitch, and you're part of the group, and it's always open to new people coming in, but not necessarily for the major tournament. You know, maybe the squad before or the squad before that, or Callum Wilson has had his chance of late and maybe in recent years, and maybe it's only injuries that took him out, and so him coming back in is not a massive shock. But I think to people in football, Maddison is maybe a pleasant shock. But Jarrod Bowen, yeah, there will definitely be disappointment there. But equally, he's got a chance to fight his way back in Euros and World Cups to come. And if his form for club is as it's been in recent years, and he's attracted the interest of a number of bigger clubs who are keeping a close eye on him, then you think he has a chance going forward.
And I just want to let you know, just in case you haven't been informed, but Thiago Alcantara hasn't made the Spanish squad. Is that a massive shock to you? What does he have to do? To me, he's the midfield maestro, or he is to a lot of us who watch the Premier League. What is going on over there?
I love Thiago Alcantara. I always have done throughout his career. The only shame is that much of it has been affected by injuries, and even his time at Liverpool, when he plays, he's normally irrepressible and the conductor of that orchestra. But as I said, when he plays, because he's picked up some physical problems along the way, and Spain always have great options in midfield. Yeah, he's one of the best and one of the most experienced and one of the most renowned, and he's a star that we all love. But the competition for places is fierce, and it's a decision that Luis Enrique has, had to be brave on, and he'll hope that it doesn't backfire. I think Thiago will be disappointed. Many of us watching will be disappointed, but you suspect that regardless, they'll be competitive at this tournament. It's just a shame for the purists, because he's a beautiful player. When he ticks, his teams normally do as well. So, yeah, I've only just seen the news, so it's quite hard to react in depth, but gutted for him.
I know they've also left out Sergio Ramos, but I'm not too surprised on that one. He hasn't been in the best of form of late, but even though PSG have been great, but I'm not surprised they have to move forward. But with Thiago, I am. I want to pull it back now to this weekend. I'll tell you what, David, I'm very interested to see how many players are going to be pulling out of tackles. Because if you are Gareth Southgate, you're going to be twitching and, scared the whole time. Harry Kane should only be playing 20 minutes max. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, we got the games coming up this weekend. Did you feel like teams were, I don't want to accuse them of not trying, but could you see the mindfulness during the EFL games this week?
Well, the likes of Harry Kane got picked. Marcus Rashford, Harry Maguire, he needed a game. But certain players, you would question whether it was wise playing them, whether they might be wrapped in cotton wool, and they did turn out for their clubs. There's a part of me that wonders, why not? They've got good fitness. You can't completely mollycoddle them. Anything can happen in a training session, let alone a match. And it undermines the integrity of the competition a bit if you're pulling them out. It's not the club's fault that this World Cup is taking place at this point in time, and they want to get the best possible result. So I'm not shocked that they're continuing to be picked by their club managers. The Argentine national team, I think, requested to Premier League managers that they not play their players ahead of the tournament. That request was rejected. We were keeping a beady eye out last weekend in particular for any yellow cards that were picked up to incur suspensions for the likes of Harry Kane. That didn't happen. There was a red card, wasn't there? I'm trying to think of who it was for. that meant the player would miss the League Cup game in midweek, but not the last round of Premier League fixtures. So if that was tactical, it didn't work. It's a really difficult balancing act, and you never know when a rest should be taken. Obviously, the clubs monitor this very closely and look at when players are in the red zone, etc. But a lot of it is bad luck, misfortune, and some of these players will be nervous. Their representatives, their families, Gareth Southgate, the England coaches, the England fans, because it's so close to the tournament now. But these matches are critically important. The likes of Chelsea going to Newcastle on Saturday. You know, Arsenal trying to maintain their lead at the top of the Premier League going into the World Cup break. Manchester City trying to keep tabs on them. Liverpool have got a big match to, you know, get back on song or continue on song domestically after their win at Tottenham. Down at the bottom of the table, you've got Nathan Jones in his first match in charge of Southampton. So wherever you look in this Premier League table, there are crucial fixtures. There's so much at stake from a sporting and financial perspective. And they're going to play their best players. Antonio Conte said that Harry Kane looked fatigued and exhausted. Won't be music to the ears of Gareth Southgate, but you do suspect that the professionalism that these players have been showing means that most of them want to turn out, and they will have faith that by not going half-hearted and pulling out of challenges and showing caution, that actually they will come through in decent shape. They will have a few days to rejuvenate themselves, to get into the international camp, to do a tiny bit of training. And as Gareth Southgate said, it's England's job to excite the players when they walk through that door for 1 month, potentially, of action that could prove a defining moment in their careers. And so you just keep your fingers crossed from a neutral perspective that everybody can come through in as best shape as possible.
No, I hear you. I mean, it's definitely important because managers still have to worry about their jobs. Perfect example, David Moyes. You know, he's received the backing from the board despite West Ham's 2-1 defeat to Crystal Palace on Sunday. Now, have you heard anything else, you know, from that camp? Is it the dreaded vote of confidence, or is it a real vote of confidence that he's receiving?
Yeah, this was a story in my Monday column written by Rashane Thomas, my colleague, and he actually did a really good interview with Rio in the week, which I would urge people to go and check out. But Rashane reports as his understanding that the West Ham hierarchy are squarely behind David Moyes, and rightly so. He's transformed that club and their you know, success and getting into Europe and competing, and it's been a really good period, David Moyes' second stint in charge of West Ham. Of course, when you hear that vote of confidence or whatever, you do worry a bit, but I think it's genuine. I think it's on face value. It should be taken, and West Ham will hope that they come through to the international break in decent shape. But forget David Moyes for a sec. There'll be many managers who are or have been looking over their shoulders, clubs that have been trying to get to the international World Cup break before making that big decision. You know, Leicester showed the faith in Brendan Rodgers, and that faith has been rewarded because they've turned it around when many people thought he was out. Steve Cooper was having a bad time at Nottingham Forest, but just when it seemed that his job may be on the line, he was given a new contract, and it's been a bit of a mixed time.
And Jay Ling scores.
And Jay Ling scores a nice goal in the League Cup. At Southampton, they were definitely trying to get through to the World Cup break, but they felt they couldn't go on, and so Ralph Hasenhüttl was replaced. There's situations all over the league, and it's going to be a really crucial period now, an unprecedented gap in the domestic calendar, and that will give clubs the opportunity to review their managerial situations if needed, to plan for the January transfer window, to almost conduct a pre-season, mid-season, to look at their contract situations. And that's going to be a really crucial one for players, the likes of, we talked about it last week, Marcus Rashford, David De Gea, Diego Dalot, the Cristiano Ronaldo situation at Manchester United. And that's just one club. There are plenty more across the league. Arsenal, Bukayo Saka, still no official news on that contract situation. Gabriel Martinelli too. There was one more situation at Arsenal contractually. The name escapes me. William Saliba, how could I forget? And we've spoken about that as well. So for managers and players, this rest for, you know, competitive action at club level gives those executives a long awaited chance to try and sort some of those situations out. And I do expect to hear some news across the league as we go forward in the weeks ahead when it comes to new contracts, renewals, potential transfers, potential managerial or coaching staff changes. So don't expect it to be quiet on the club front just because much of our focus is on Qatar.
Definitely not. I mean, even when you look at clubs like Arsenal, they intend to travel to Dubai on December the 4th for a warm-up weather camp during exhibition matches with the likes of Lyon to be played on December the 8th, AC Milan 5 days later. You're also going to have Liverpool involved. I mean, this is really good for fitness, right? And it's just, I think it's a way to try to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, definitely. Many clubs are going to be in Dubai, I think Australia, Spain, USA, and they get to enjoy some sunny weather, some warmer climes, a bit of a rest, but also some crucial training because their bodies have never been used to having this sort of a break. And it's going to be fascinating to see how they tailor their training sessions, their recovery from this first spell of the season, their build up for the second part. Now, I think Arsenal, like most clubs, will have 10 days off for their players after this weekend's matches. So Arsenal play Wolves in the Saturday evening kickoff. And then they'll regroup and they'll go to London Colney. They'll do some training there. They'll jet off to Dubai on the 4th, I think it is, of December. As you say, play a couple of matches, Lyon and AC Milan. They'll come back to the UK. Don't think it's been confirmed yet, but they're looking at a potential match at the Emirates Stadium, most likely against Spanish opposition, which could be quite exciting. Fans in the stadium just before the competitive action recommences. Liverpool, I think, will also be in Dubai. There's a match against Milan too. It's a bit of a round robin that they're involved in, but I don't think Arsenal and Liverpool are going to be playing each other. Man United have got a couple of games in Jerez, is it? And so, yeah, let's see how they pick up. They won't want to pick up injuries. They'll want to be fresh and ready to go. They'll want to be adding maybe some of these teams to their squads for that restart or even by the end of the January transfer window. Look, the January window is normally only used for emergencies or for opportunities that maybe were planned for the summer and they're able to be brought forward and the money is available. Clubs looking to get out of trouble at the bottom of the league or push on towards Europe. Then the difference this time is that unlike in normal seasons, they've got weeks to plan it and weeks to hold negotiations. Many people will be out in the Middle East, whether it be Dubai or Qatar, having meetings. I need to be hanging out in some of those hotel lobbies, don't I, to try and pick up the stories. And that means there may be a bit more activity than we're used to seeing in January. So yeah, it's a really intriguing period.
David, thank you so much for your time. And I do advise for those who have the chance to read David's article on The Athletic, please take a look. He's got some brilliant colleagues as well who write some amazing stuff. We will be taking a break from the Five Insider during the World Cup, but we will be back in January and it's going to get extra juicy, right? Because we're going to have the transfers, you know. So please make sure you follow David on all of his social platforms. You know, there's great content there. He's going to be doing stuff during the course of the World Cup. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on him. Make sure you're following Five. Make sure you follow me. And yeah, we're looking forward to come back and serve you some more Five Insider. Jarrod Bowen, David Ornstein, signing out. Peace.